Footsteps on the mountain. Master Deo rose with the sun and stepped outside his stone hut, nestled high in the shadow of the mountain. The morning air was cold and bracing. Deo paused to center himself, observing the details surrounding him. Dewdrops glistened like pearls on autumn grasses. The sky glowed amber above the frosted pines. A stillness permeated the hillside. Taking up his knobby staff, Deo began the steep hike to the mountain summit. His pace was slow but steady, determined step after step. The rocky trail snaked ever higher into thinning air, winding its way among outcroppings and towering cedars. He walked in mindful rhythm, planting his staff then lifting each sandaled foot in turn. Deo had trodden this stony path for decades, through season after season, year in and year out. In his youth he had charged up the slope vigorously, hardly winded upon reaching the top. Now his limbs protested each upward step. But Deo did not mind the burning in his legs or the heaving of his lungs. At his age, discomfort was an old companion. The mountain reminded him to keep placing one foot in front of the other along the unending journey. The novice monks back at the temple sometimes whispered that the old master was too feeble for such a strenuous daily ritual, but they did not yet comprehend the inner strength honed by a lifetime of spiritual practice. Some deemed Deo a fool for persisting despite the hardship it caused his aging frame. But the breathless exhilaration Deo felt atop the mountain was stronger than the opinions of men. Only there, gazing out over the vast landscape below, could his vision encompass all. Midway up the slope, Deo came to a gurgling stream spilling from an outcropping of moss-covered rocks. Here he paused to sip the crystal water from cupped hands. The cold shock against his lips and tongue felt deliciously invigorating. Deo splashed handfuls over his brow, feeling the rivulets run down his neck. He stared deep into the flowing stream. Its babbling current mirrored the endless procession of seasons, the cycle of life and death. To gaze thus was to touch the face of the Absolute. Refreshed, Deo climbed onward through stands of hardy firs, their fragrance sharp and clean. Needles crunched beneath his sandals. He knew this trail intimately, like the halls of his own home. Even the jagged rocks passed familiar beneath his palm, weathered smooth by the hands of 1,000 pilgrims before him. Each step retraced brought solace. On the path Deo found liberation. At last the final twist of the trail delivered him through a towering gate of stone to the mountain's windswept summit. Deo emerged into open sky and sunlight. He crossed the bare promontory to its eastern edge, where he often meditated for hours. Far below, the vast green valley spread out between neighboring peaks. From this vantage the landscape looked so serene, masking the endless cycles of change that shaped it. Settling stiffly atop a flat boulder, Deo closed his eyes and turned awareness inward. His steady breathing echoed in the mountain silence. Thoughts arose then fluttered past like birds, leaving no trace. The cold wind swept through his being, scattering self to the four quarters. For a timeless interim Deo existed only as emptiness, one with the cosmic void. Here at the mountain's cloud-piercing summit, earthly concerns could not survive. Worries disintegrated like spider webs in a gale. What remained was the flowing dance between objects, and the stillness within. This deepest perspective was Deo's cherished gift from the mountain. When he finally rose again the sun had climbed high overhead. Deo gave thanks with palms pressed together, then began the long descent. Though gravity now assisted each step, his stiff joints and tired muscles protested anew. Still Deo smiled, warmed by an inner glow that radiated down the rocky trail ahead of him. The sun at his back illuminated the path home. The day's last light was fading as Deo returned to his simple hut, nestled in the mountain's stony skirt. He prepared a humble meal of millet and greens gathered from nearby terraces. Then he lit a single candle and sat in silent meditation as night's veil descended. Peace settled over the moonlit slopes. Finally Deo unrolled his threadbare mat and stretched his weary frame upon it. Lying still, he heard the hushed voice of the mountain whispering just outside his dwelling. Deo knew the hidden message, that by sunrise he must rise and climb once more. "The path continues endlessly," said the mountain. "Our only choice is to walk it with awareness." With this truth resonating in his mind, Deo passed gently into sleep. When dawn came, Deo woke and reached for his staff. He stepped outside to face the beckoning trail upward. This was the ritual that gave his life meaning. The mountain reminded him always that each step must be made with care, for the climb is long. With back straight, Deo lifted his staff purposefully and resumed the ascent. This story was inspired by the quiet perseverance and inner determination required for a lifetime of spiritual practice. The daily hike up the mountain represents the monk's commitment to his inner journey, which continues despite old age and physical hardship. The mountain symbolizes the challenges of the contemplative path, but also the timeless wisdom available at the summit of awareness. Through his ritual climbs, the monk maintains a deep perspective that sustains him through temporary struggles. His slow but steady footsteps trace the endless path that leads within.